Hey, what's up everybody? I'd like to welcome you to another Juice tutorial. And in this tutorial, we're going to talk about an item that I see so many questions about in our Discord chat and also just around the audio programming community, which is about connecting visual elements that you have. So you have a user that is controlling some sort of slider or some sort of button in their plugin. And how do you connect those to the processor side where we have some sort of parameters that need to be adjusted that are going to somehow change our signal flow in our plugin. So this is a tutorial designed to show you how to connect those two sides using attachments. So I'm going to assume that you've already checked out tutorial 44 where I talk about the audio processor value tree state, because that's the way that we're going to actually connect these two sides and these items up to each other. So we have some sample code that I've created and you can follow along. To do that, you could go to github.com/theaudioprogrammer/ValueTree Attachments, and you can download the sample code to follow along. So I'll show you the sample code now. So this is what we have. So first thing that we have is our audio processor value tree state. So just to refresh you on what that is, we have the audio processor value tree state object that's been instantiated here. And then we have this function called create parameters, where what we do is we create the different parameters that we think that our user is going to want to adjust on their plugin. So we're going to have some sort of sliders, and then we're going to have the parameters here that are going to associate with those sliders, buttons, and combo boxes. So going to our plugin processor here, we have the create parameters function here that we're looking at. And what I've done here is I've created 4 different parameters here. I've created one that's a float parameter, so this could be something like a gain slider. It's just going from 0 to 1, and we can see that it's the it's an audio parameter float. Okay, so all of these are different types of ranged audio parameters. Okay, so let me just show you that in documentation just to reinforce what I'm saying. So we have the ranged audio parameter class. And then in the ranged audio parameter class, we can see that we have 4 different types of parameter values that we can use. So we have audio parameter bool. So this would be if a button was on or off. We have a parameter choice. So if the user was using like combo box that had like 3 different choices. Then we have audio parameter float, which is like a gain, then an audio parameter int, which is same as a float, but an int. And so I've created 4 different types of parameters that are those 4 types. So we have the gain slider type of parameter, which is audio parameter float. We have the combo box one that is like audio parameter choice. And then we have bool, which is just an on or off. And I just called that power. And then we have an int, which is just associated with like a dial. Okay, so those are the parameters that we have here. And then we see that if we go up to the top here, we have our audio processor value tree state object that we've instantiated here. And here we call our function create parameters. This kind of uploads your parameters, so to speak, into the value tree. Okay, so that's the processor side. So that's the back end of the plugin where the actual audio processing and the hard math is actually happening. Then if we go on over to the editor side, you'll see what I've done is I've created 4 different components here. So I have a slider. It's just called slider. I have a dial. I have a text button that is just designed to act as like a power button. And then we have a combo box with 3 choices. So then going on to our CPP file here, I've just given these some default kind of parameters. So we have linear vertical slider. We have, I'm just setting the text box below, setting the range and making it visible. And then just kind of doing the same sort of things for these other components. We have a rotary dial. We have a power button, that's set for red or green, depending on if the buttons are on or off. And then I have a combo box where I've created 3 items that are just 3 choices that the user can make. Going down to the bottom into resized, I am just setting the bounds on these, so I'm actually just drawing them to the screen. So I have this connected up to my Ableton to open up an Ableton. So I'm just going to build this now. And if you're not familiar with how to open up your project or your plugin in a DAW, check tutorial. I think it's tutorial 17 where I show you how to do that. So now we're just going to go into our VST3s, and then this plugin is called ValueTree Attachments. And then here is, our plugin. So drag it into our window here. So here we have our audio parameter float. We have an int. We have a button that turns on or off. And we have a combo box where we can make just different choices here. Okay, so that's where we're at so far. And then the question becomes, how do we actually connect these? So at the moment, they're not actually connected to our processor side, to the ranged audio parameters. I'm just going to save this actually. I will just call this let's just call this value tree. There we go. So the way that we need to do this is, so just to reiterate here very quickly, we have these sliders and dials, visual components, and then here on the plugin processor side, we have parameters. And these two things are not associated with each other at the moment. So we need to use different types of attachments to do this. Okay, so just going back to our documentation here, if I go to audio processor value tree state, then in here we have some different types of attachments here. So we have this one that's a button attachment, combo box attachment, and let's just start off with a slider attachment. Okay, so I'm just going to click in here, go to the documentation, and we see here that it maintains a connection between a slider and a parameter in the audio processor value tree state. So then to instantiate it, we just use these arguments here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a unique pointer. So some people ask, okay, why would you use a unique pointer here? Well, the main reason that you'd want to use a unique pointer in this particular situation is because this is controlling a visual element, and the attachment doesn't actually have to exist when the UI is closed. So when the UI is closed, then the unique pointer goes out of scope and it doesn't actually even exist anymore. It doesn't need to exist unless we actually have the UI open and we're actually controlling a parameter. So for that matter, these sliders and text buttons and combo boxes can actually all be unique pointers as well, because they don't actually need to be there or exist when the UI is closed. Okay, because for all that matter, they actually don't exist. Okay, so that's why we're using a unique pointer in this situation. So what we need to do is we need to do this audio processor value tree state slider attachment. So it's a unique pointer of audio processor value tree state slider attachment type. Okay, and I will just call this slider attachment. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing. So for these other ones, okay, so the dial is a type of slider, so I could just actually do the same thing here and make this dial attachment, and then we will make another unique pointer. Okay, I could copy and paste all this, but I like actually typing it just to reinforce the learning here. So text button. Okay, so for this one, we can just go back a step here, and we actually have another one that's called button attachment. Okay, so audio processor value tree state button attachment. Now we'll just paste that in here. And I'll just call this button attachment. And then we will do one more. And then this will be combo box attachment, I believe. So we have combo box attachment. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this here, paste it here, call this choice attachment. Okay, so one thing that you want to be aware of here is that if you go here, I believe all of these attachments say the same thing. So it says during the lifetime of this combo box attachment, keeps the two things in sync, blah, blah, blah. When this object is deleted, the connection is broken. Make sure that your audio processor value tree state and combo box aren't deleted before this object. Okay, so for that reason, what I'm doing is I'm actually putting these unique pointers below the sliders, okay, because when this plugin editor actually destructs, it actually destructs in the reverse order of the way that you declared it. So if you declared the slider first, then it will actually delete the slider last. Okay, so it actually, when it destructs from the bottom up. So that's why we need to get rid of the attachments before we get rid of the components themselves. Okay, so I hope that that's clear for you. If you declare these above the sliders and these visual components here, you'll actually get a crash. I believe the crash will happen if you when you try to close the plugin. That's the reason why. Okay, very common error. So onward with this. So we got the slider attachment. So let's just start with that. So the thing to keep in mind here with these unique pointers is at the moment we've created these unique pointers, but we haven't actually allocated memory yet. Okay, so the way that we do that in this situation is, so we have our first one, which is called slider attachment. So the way that we declare this is we do slider attachment equals, and now we use std make unique. And make unique is actually what allocates the memory for the slider attachment. Okay, so this is a little bit of kind of repeating ourselves again here. So I'm gonna have to do some copying and pasting. So what we're saying is we're allocating memory of this type of object, and then I'm going to go back to my documentation here, and we actually go to slider attachment, and here are our arguments that we need. Okay, and I will paste them here. Oops, actually I'm going to go back here. I'm going to copy and paste this one so it's it's not so crazy. Okay, so there we go. So our first parameter is audio processor value tree state to control. Okay, so just a reminder here that in our plugin editor we have a reference to our processor object. Okay, so our processor object is over here. Okay, so it's called ValueTree attachments audio processor reference, and then you can see here, going back to our header. Okay, I'm just doing this for people that may be still learning C++ like myself. Okay, always some learning process. So we see that this is the class, right? ValueTree attachments audio processor. So this is just referring to this. Okay. Oh, sorry. To this value tree, the value attachments audio processor. Okay. So So what we need is our audio processor value tree state object, which is this object right here. Okay, so going back to our slider attachment here, or declaration. So it says state to control. This is why we're saying processor.apvts. Okay, that is because that's our audio processor value tree state object. Now here we need our parameter ID string. So we go back to our plugin processor.cpp, and then this is our parameter ID. Okay, this first one right here, slider. So then I'm going to just going to paste that in here. And then it says slider to control, okay, which is this one, right? Our slider, which is going from 0 to 1. Right, so that's why I'm going to put slider here. Okay, so that's what that's about. Okay, this is just saying this is our audio processor value tree state object. This the gain, the parameter that we're looking for in our audio processor value tree state is the slider gain ID, the slider ID, and then I want to associate that parameter with my slider, with my visual slider. Okay, so that's what I've done there. Okay, so those two things are now connected to each other. Okay, so now we just need to do that for the other ones. Okay, so now it's just dial attachment, and here we go. So I'm just going to copy this here, then just going to change this to, I believe it's called dial. Okay, I'm just going to move this just so we have these in the same order. Okay, so we got dial. Okay, and then we want to associate that dial parameter with our actual visual dial. Right, now we do the same thing for our button attachment. So we have this on or off button here, and so we go back here, and then we're going to do the same thing here. Okay, but a few little differences. Okay, this is it says slider attachment at the moment. We want this to be a button attachment, right? Because it's a button that we're actually attaching here. And we call this power, and we're associating that with our power button. Okay, and you can see here that I have this is a text button, and then I have set clicking toggle state to be true, which means that this will turn on or off. Okay, then we have our last one, which is, I believe, choice box, or choice attachment equals, and now we're going to do the same thing. But this, once again, instead of a slider attachment, this needs to be a combo box attachment. Okay, then we have our audio processor value tree state object, and let's see what we called our parameter. We called it choice. Okay, I'm just going to take this, put this below, just so we have everything kind of nice and neat and in a everything is kind of in the same order there. Okay, just keep it all the same. So it's called choice, and here we go. And then we are associating this with choice box. Okay, so now we have the attachment, so we should be good to go here. Okay, so then the next question becomes, how do we actually get these values, right? So we have them at the moment, they're in this vector of unique pointers, of ranged audio parameters. So how do we actually get this out of our value tree when we want to use it? Okay, so I'm just going to demonstrate this for you in the audio block. So I'm just going to get rid of all the stuff in the audio block here. And we can just say, we're just going to, this is not something that I would normally do in the process block. Okay, so, but this is just for like demonstration purposes here. So we got auto slider value equals, okay, so now we need to get these, parameters, right? So we have the first one, okay, which is called slider. Okay, so now we'll go back up to, I always lose my place in here, I'm sorry. So we got slider value equals, and then we go to our APVTS object. Okay, so, and then there's a function that's called get raw parameter value. Now the tricky thing here is that we see that this returns a float pointer. Okay, so first thing that we'll do is we'll get the raw parameter value, and then we have our string ID, which is, slider. Okay, slider is our value. But this returns a float pointer. And if you recall, or if you don't, to get the value of this pointer, we need to put the star operator in front of it. Okay, that gets us the value at that memory location. So the pointer is just a memory location, so it's pointing to a memory location, and now the star operator is getting the value that's stored in that memory location. Okay, so let's do that for these other ones. So we have dial, right? So dial value, and then we will do the same thing, get raw parameter value, and then we call this dial. Okay, and then we will say auto button value equals, then we got get raw parameter value again, and this was called power, and then we will call this box choice, and then same thing, get raw parameter value, and then this was called choice, I believe. Okay, so let's go down here. So it's called choice. Okay, so that's how we actually get the values here. Okay, so let's just print these out. So let's just say slider value and slider value, and then we will do dial value, then dial value, then button value. So this should just give us a 0 or 1. When we click that on or off. And then we got button value, and then box, combo box choice, and then we got box choice. Okay, so let's see, so that should, and then this box choice will just give us the choice of whatever we've actually chosen. So it'll just be an index. It won't actually be the string. Okay, so now we're just going to open this back up in Ableton right quick. Here we are. So now we see our values printing out. Once again, do not when you're making a quote unquote real plugin, you don't want to be consoling out in your audio callback. So this is just for demonstration purposes here. So as we can see, we move the slider value and it's moving up and down. We see that that's refreshing properly here. Okay, same thing here. So that's working properly. Okay, then we got our button value turning on and off properly. Then we have our combo box choice turning on and off properly, turning to the proper choice. So that's it. So that's how you do it. Okay. So just to refresh on that, you have very quickly, you have different types of ranged audio parameters that you can create for your value tree on the audio side. So you have a float, an int, a bool, or a choice. Okay, and that's how you instantiate those. There's a longer constructor for these, but I just wanted to make it easy just to demonstrate it here. Those get pushed into this vector that we call parameters. Then we return the vector here. That's our parameter layout. We uploaded that to our audio processor value tree state. Okay, I say uploaded in kind of quotes, okay, hand wavy. Then in our plugin editor, we have these unique pointers, which are our different attachments. So we need an attachment that's appropriate for the type of visual component that we've created. So if we have a slider, it needs a slider attachment. If it's a combo box, it needs a combo box attachment. Okay. Once again, make sure that these are created after your visual components. Okay. Because when the editor destructs, it destructs in the reverse order, which means that these attachments will be destroyed first before the actual components. Okay. Then heading over to our plugin editor.cpp, beneath all of our parameters for our different sliders, then we are actually allocating using stud make unique. Okay, then that's where we actually have our processor, our audio processor value tree state object from our processor. Then we're getting the gain, the parameter ID, and then we're just associating that parameter ID with our actual visual component. And we're just doing that for all of these. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions or suggestions on how to improve this process, or if you feel that I've missed anything, please feel free to make a comment below. I always enjoy checking out the comments and seeing ways that we can all improve our code. So I'm going to go ahead and end this tutorial. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.